Remember when Darth Vader said 5 words that shattered a generation? Mark Hamill, Harrison Ford, and even Yoda himself were part of a production hiding secrets nobody was told. Today we're counting down 15 weird facts you never knew about The Empire Strikes Back. Number 15. The credit reads directed by Irvin Kershner, and in 1980, almost nobody outside Hollywood recognized that name. That anonymity was intentional. George Lucas had no interest in directing the sequel to Star Wars, and when he began looking for someone to sit in the director's chair, he did not reach out to a studio-approved list. He called his old professor. Kershner had taught Lucas at the USC School of Cinematic Arts. His career had been built on intimate, character-driven films, not blockbusters. Lucas saw that as exactly the point. According to producer Gary Kurtz, who made the initial call, Kershner's first answer was no. He said it at lunch. He was genuinely intimidated by the scale of following Star Wars and did not think he was the right person. His agent pushed him back to the conversation. When Lucas finally made his pitch, it was not about spectacle. It was something close to, I want someone who knows everything a Hollywood director is supposed to know, but who is not Hollywood. That framing worked. What Kershner brought to set was a teacher's instinct for people. He encouraged the cast to find beats Lucas had not written, prioritizing mood over momentum. Every quiet, character-first moment in the film, the bickering between Han and Leia, Yoda's deliberate patience with Luke, carries that professor's specific fingerprint. The film's emotional weight was a deliberate decision made by hiring someone who operated outside the system. Not every casting choice required that much thought. Number 14. Boba Fett stands silently beside Darth Vader in The Executor, and in roughly 90 seconds of screen time, became one of the most iconic characters in the entire franchise. That mystique was built almost entirely by accident. Jeremy Bulloch never auditioned for the role, never read the script, and received no formal character direction from anyone on the production. Here is how he got the job. His half-brother Robert Watts was associate producer on the film, and the costume made for an early Super Stormtrooper design happened to fit Bulloch's frame. That was essentially the audition. The suit fit. He was in. With no guidance from Kershner or Lucas, Bulloch built Fett's body language entirely on his own. He modeled the character on Clint Eastwood's Man with No Name from the spaghetti westerns. The deliberately cradled blaster, the slow deliberate head tilt, the absolute stillness in every scene. Bulloch was a small theater actor with a single private reference point and no direction from above. Sound designer Ben Burt later deepened the Western connection in post-production by adding spur-jangle footsteps to Fett's audio track, reinforcing a gunslinger quality Bulloch had already built without ever discussing it with anyone. Boba Fett became the most merchandised secondary character in franchise history, inspiring novel series and spin-off productions all built on a costume-fit accident and one actor's solo creative decision. The next new character's arrival was equally unconventional, though the path looked nothing like Bulloch's. Number 13. Lando Calrissian's entrance in Cloud City is one of the best character introductions in the saga. A cape swirling, a hand extended, a smile that tells you immediately this man knows something everybody else in the room does not. That magnetic quality was not directed, it was simply Billy D. Williams. Williams was under personal contract to Motown founder Berry Gordy when George Lucas wanted him for Lando. The deal ran through Gordy's company rather than through any conventional studio talent arrangement. Williams was already an established leading man from his work in Lady Sings the Blues and Mahogany. Lucas was not discovering an unknown, he was casting a star he already knew. Williams said much of Lando's charm was drawn directly from himself. He had grown up watching Errol Flynn's swashbuckler films and treated the cape as a key factor in physically locating the character. The swaggering ambiguity, the gambler's polish, the instinctive warmth, Williams was importing his own existing screen persona directly into the saga. Lando's casting also marked the first black actor with a major role in the Star Wars franchise. That was not a coincidence of opportunity. Lucas was deliberately seeking a leading man of Williams' stature, not a supporting player. The script behind Lando's introduction was in genuine crisis, though. The woman who wrote the first complete draft of the screenplay died before Lucas could give her any notes at all. Number 12. The screenplay credit reads Lee Brackett and Lawrence Kasdan, and both names carry enormous weight. Brackett wrote the screenplays for The Big Sleep and Rio Bravo. Kasdan went on to write Raiders of the Lost Ark and Body Heat. The collaboration between them never actually happened. Brackett died of cancer in March 1978, weeks after delivering her first draft, before Lucas had a chance to respond. Lucas wrote his own complete draft of the screenplay in 121 handwritten pages, dated April 1, 1978, for $60,000 to develop the final version. The WGA credit question was difficult. Producer Howard Kazanjian reportedly doubted Brackett would receive credit given how much had changed. Lucas insisted on it regardless. The most revealing detail in Brackett's draft is what it does not contain. There is no father-son twist. In her version, Anakin Skywalker appears as a benevolent Force ghost, a completely separate figure from Darth Vader. The central revelation of the entire saga was not in the first draft. Lucas knew Brackett was terminally ill when he hired her. The pulpy adventure architecture she laid down, Dagobah, the ice planet, the love triangle, survived into the finished film even though almost none of her original dialogue did. The screenplay audiences know was built on bones laid by a woman who never saw the result. And the twist those bones were eventually reshaped to support was about to change cinema forever. Number 11. The Hoth sequences in Empire are some of the most visually spectacular scenes in the original trilogy. A T-AT walkers cresting a glacier, Luke slicing open a tauntaun in sub-zero wind, Rebel soldiers charging through blinding white light. What you are watching in nearly every wide shot is a crew that could barely feel their hands. The Hoth sequences were filmed at Finns, Norway during what J.W. Rinsler documented in The Making of The Empire Strikes Back as among the worst snowstorms the region had experienced in half a century. Temperatures fell to -38 degrees Fahrenheit with sustained 40-mile-per-hour winds. Acetate film snapped in the cold. Camera lenses froze solid. Effects paint solidified in the tin overnight. Trenches dug for rebel fighters filled back in before the crew returned in the morning. The second unit was scheduled for Norway for 3 weeks and stayed. 8. Harrison Ford was rerouted from a lead studio shoot and completed his final Norway shots by arriving on a snowplow. Mark Hamill confirmed in a 2020 StarWars.com interview that the Tauntaun rescue was originally planned for a glacier 90 minutes away and was ultimately filmed 30 feet outside the hotel door because leaving the building was simply not possible that day. The Norway disaster pushed the budget past $22 million before principal photography at Elstree had even properly started. That was before the fire next door. Number 10. Think about the immersive quality of the Dagobah set, Yoda's murky swamp, the twisted roots, the oppressive atmosphere the lighting suggests. Now consider that the stage where it was originally going to be built burned to the ground 5 weeks before filming started, and the crew had 7 weeks to rebuild from scratch instead of the 14 that had been planned. On January 24, 1979, a fire gutted Stage 3 at Elstree Studios. The fire was reportedly traced to a discarded cigarette, and cluttered driveways blocked the fire trucks from reaching the stage in time. The complication? Stage 3 was being used by Stanley Kubrick, who was finishing The Shining. When the stage burned, Empire was forced to surrender 2 additional stages so Kubrick could rebuild, leaving the production to juggle 64 sets across only 9 stages. Production designer Norman Reynolds and associate producer Robert Watts had no good options. Kirshner could not delay. The Dagobah set was relocated to the new Star Wars stage and rebuilt in roughly half the originally planned time, with overnight overtime running throughout construction. The fire next door is one of the most underreported reasons Empire ran wildly over schedule and budget. It cascaded into weeks of additional compression, with the crew building tomorrow's set while filming today's on whatever stage was currently available. When the frozen crew and the fire-displaced production finally reunited in England, the money was nearly gone entirely. Number 9. That opening title card, a Lucasfilm limited production, signals a kind of creative independence that had never been seen at that scale in Hollywood. By mid-1979, that independence was approximately 2 weeks from being permanently dismantled. The production had run out of money. Bank of America refused to extend the loan. George Lucas was facing the real possibility of having to sell the rights to Empire to 20th Century Fox, which would have ended Lucasfilm's financial independence entirely. The budget had ballooned from a planned $18 million to an eventual $30.5 million. Lucas had been borrowing from his own merchandising company Black Falcon and had switched staff from weekly to bi-weekly payments to buy himself time. Fox's position was serious. With roughly 20% of filming still left to complete, the studio threatened to invoke the completion bond and assume direct control of the picture. Lucasfilm president Charles Weber ultimately refinanced through Bank of Boston, securing $27.7 million plus a $3 million Fox guarantee in exchange for a larger Fox cut of profits and 10% of merchandising revenue. The deal closed with the production still running. The asteroid field chase sequences, some of the most technically ambitious material in the film, were shot by a company genuinely unsure whether it would still own the film by the end of the week. This near disaster cracked the creative partnership that had built the franchise from the beginning. Number 8. The credit, produced by Gary Kurtz, appears in Empire and in the original Star Wars before it. It does not appear in Return of the Jedi, and it never appeared on a George Lucas Star Wars film again. That disappearance was not amicable. The relationship between Lucas and Kurtz broke over Empire's budget overruns and over a deeper creative disagreement about where the franchise was heading. Kurtz, who had produced American Graffiti and the original Star Wars, was replaced by Howard Kazanjian for the third film and never returned. Kurtz gave a frank interview to the Los Angeles Times in 2010, in which he described a version of Jedi where Han Solo dies on a mission and Luke walks off into the sunset alone. Lucas refused. Kurtz told Collider that the toy business had begun driving creative decisions. The first film and Empire were about story and character, but I could see that George's priorities were changing. Mark Hamill reportedly compared the split to parents getting a divorce. Lucas blamed Kurtz for insufficient financial oversight during Empire. Kurtz felt the franchise had become more interested in merchandise than in meaning. Empire is the last Star Wars film co-piloted by the producer who most consistently pushed toward character and consequence. Its willingness to end on loss and genuine uncertainty is inseparable from that specific creative partnership, which ended the moment the film was finished. All right, we're at the halfway mark, and things are about to get even wilder. Before we hit the top 7, I want to hear from you. What's your favorite Empire Strikes Back moment? Drop it in the comments, and if you're enjoying this, smash that like button and subscribe. It helps the channel grow. Number 7. The scene where Yoda levitates Luke's X-Wing from the Dagobah swamp is one of the most quietly devastating moments in the original trilogy. The creature delivering that lesson is a puppet built in 7 weeks, performed by the man behind Miss Piggy and constructed partly from the face of the man who built him. Before any of that happened, the production seriously considered putting a mask on a trained monkey. Pre-production explored using a trained monkey wearing a Yoda mask on the Dagobah set. The idea was abandoned after veteran crew members with experience from Stanley Kubrick's 2001: A Space Odyssey warned how genuinely difficult working with live animals on set could become. Makeup designer Stuart Freeborn built the puppet instead, basing Yoda's face on a combination of his own features and a photograph of Albert Einstein on his workshop wall. George Lucas's first choice to perform Yoda was Jim Henson. Henson was committed to other projects. He recommended Frank Oz, his longtime Muppets collaborator, calling him the other half of me. Oz took the role. Lucas later said in the documentary Empire of Dreams that if Yoda had not worked on screen, the whole film would have been down the tubes. The technical demands were so extreme that crew members reportedly nailed a colleague to the workshop floor as a stress relief prank during construction. The creature audiences trusted with the film's spiritual weight was one monkey mask away from not existing at all. Number 6. No, I Am Your Father. 5 words that redefined what a sequel could do to an audience. Almost no one on set knew they were being filmed. The entire crew, including the actor inside the Darth Vader suit, believed the dubbed line would match what was actually performed. David Prowse delivered a fake line during filming Obi-Wan Killed Your Father. Only George Lucas, Irvin Kershner, Lawrence Kasdan, and James Earl Jones knew the real version. Mark Hamill was pulled aside by Kershner moments before the camera rolled and pulled the truth privately, so his reaction would be genuine. Even then, Hamill has said he was not entirely sure whether to believe it. Newspapers began publishing the false Obi-Wan Killed Your Father version within days of the Cloud City shoot wrapping, proof that someone on set had spoken and the misdirection had worked completely. Prowse reportedly did not discover the truth until he saw the finished film. He was publicly angry about it for years, saying his physical performance throughout the scene would have been different if he had known the real line. James Earl Jones, recording the actual line in post-production, later said in the Empire of Dreams documentary, "I said to myself, he's lying. I wonder how they're going to play that lie out." The entire modern industry's understanding of script secrecy traces back to this one set in 1979, and the man in the suit was not even performing Vader's most iconic physical work. Number 5. Darth Vader pursuing Luke through the carbon-freezing chamber is one of the most precisely composed villain sequences in cinema history. Every movement is deliberate, almost balletic, with a menace built from absolute physical control rather than speed. The man performing those movements was not David Prowse. In nearly every lightsaber exchange in Empire and in Return of the Jedi, the figure inside the Vader suit is Bob Anderson, a British competitive fencer who represented his country at the 1952 Helsinki Olympics. Anderson had previously served as swordmaster on Stanley Kubrick's Barry Lyndon. He was hired to choreograph and perform Vader's fighting because Prowse was reportedly breaking lightsaber props at a rate that made the insurance costs impractical. Anderson went uncredited for years. In a 1983 Starlog magazine interview, Mark Hamill disclosed the arrangement. Bob Anderson was the man who actually did Vader's fighting. It was always supposed to be a secret, but I finally told George I did not think it was fair anymore. Because Anderson was 6'1" to Prowse's 6'7", filming required lifts and specific camera angles to preserve visual continuity throughout the sequences. The production never publicly acknowledged the arrangement during production or release. The deliberate, imposing Vader silhouette that defined cinematic villainy for decades was choreographed and executed by an Olympic athlete, not the actor credited for the performance. And the duel's most famous piece of dialogue was not even in the original script. Number 4. I love you. I know. The exchange is one of the most quoted lines in the original trilogy, and it is almost universally described as a Harrison Ford improvisation. The truth is more specific. Ford pitched the line in a detailed on-set conversation with Irving Kershner that was captured live by journalist Alan Arnold and later documented in full in J.W. Rinsler's book, The Making of The Empire Strikes Back. The scripted line was, "Just remember that, 'cause I'll be back." Ford's argument to Kershner was precise. If she says I love you, and I say I know, that's beautiful and acceptable and funny. Kershner agreed. George Lucas did not. Lucas ordered 2 complete preview cuts of the sequence, one with each version, to test both in front of audiences. At a San Francisco preview screening, Kershner later told Vanity Fair the audience broke up after I know. The response was warm and unambiguous. Lucas pulled the second preview rather than continue the comparison. Carrie Fisher was reportedly furious about having been left out of the rewrite conversation entirely. The exchange works because it allows Han Solo to remain exactly who he is at the moment of his apparent death. It is character protection from an actor, not a flippant ad-lib, and it only survived because Kershner overruled Lucas twice, once in conversation on the set and once by reading the audience's response. The line connects directly to a much larger argument happening just behind the carbonite slab. Number 3. Han Solo being lowered into the carbonite chamber is one of cinema's most effective cliffhangers. Leia screaming, Luke far away and helpless. The film ending on genuine unresolved loss. Critics in 1980 called it unsatisfying. What they were watching, at least in part, was a contract negotiation dressed as drama. Harrison Ford had signed for 1 sequel, not 3. Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher both had 3-picture deals. The screenwriters needed a clean way to remove Han Solo from the story in case Ford never chose to return. Carbonite was the solution. If Ford walked away, Han could be killed off screen between films. If he agreed to return, Han could be thawed for Jedi. Both outcomes remained available until Ford made a decision. Ford had been lobbying Lucas for years to kill the character. He believed Han Solo had no mama, no papa, no future, and that the character should sacrifice himself for something that genuinely mattered. Lawrence Kasdan agreed with Ford that a major character needed to die for the stakes to feel real. Lucas refused on both counts. The Carbonite compromise gave the production what it needed contractually while giving Ford the dramatic weight he wanted for the character, even if it fell short of death. The cliffhanger that frustrated audiences in 1980 was a business decision that became one of the saga's most enduring images. And Ford was not the only star whose relationship with the franchise was more complicated than it appeared. Number 2. Darth Vader's breath. That slow, mechanical exhalation is the most recognizable audio signature in cinema history. The man responsible for it considered the work to be special effects, not performance, and asked to be kept off the credits on both Star Wars and The Empire Strikes Back as a direct result of that belief. James Earl Jones was uncredited on both films at his own request. His name did not appear on a Star Wars picture until Return of the Jedi in 1983. The credits on the first 2 films were only added retroactively in the 1997 special edition releases. At the American Film Institute in 2009, Jones confirmed he had earned $7,000 for the original Star Wars sessions, and that the Empire sessions took a full day trying to reconstruct what they had done right the first time. Jones compared himself to Mercedes McCambridge, who dubbed the demon's voice in The Exorcist, and similarly considered the work craft rather than credited performance. He asked off the credits out of respect for David Prowse, physically present in the suit, and out of his own understanding of what voice work was. In Empire of Dreams, Jones described his reaction to recording I Am Your Father. I said to myself, he's lying. I wonder how they're going to play that lie out. A Tony Award-winning stage actor did not want his name on the poster. The final section connects all of it to music heard before the film opened. Number 1. Those 4 brass notes. The moment the Imperial fleet fills the screen in Empire, something locks into place in the audience that never leaves. What most people do not know is that those notes were heard publicly for the first time not in a movie theater, but on public television 3 weeks before the film opened. John Williams's Imperial March debuted on April 29, 1980, at Symphony Hall in Boston. The occasion was Williams's inaugural concert as the Boston Pop's 19th conductor in residence, succeeding Arthur Fiedler. The performance aired nationally on PBS, as Evening at Pops Live on opening night. America heard Darth Vader's theme before it saw the film the theme was written for. The Imperial March was a new composition created specifically for Empire. The original Star Wars had no dedicated Vader leitmotif. Williams wrote approximately 107 minutes of music for the sequel, recording with the London Symphony Orchestra at a cost of roughly $250,000. For the first time in the saga, he gave every major force in the story its own distinct musical identity, a Wagnerian operatic approach applied to science fiction cinema. Musicologists have traced the march's DNA to Chopin's Funeral March from Piano Sonata, Number 2, and Gustav Holst's Mars the Bringer of War from The Planets. Irvin Kershner himself voiced Vader in the temporary edit before Jones recorded the final track. The sonic identity of the saga's greatest villain premiered on public television, and nobody in the audience knew what they were hearing. The Empire Strikes Back survived a dying screenwriter, a Norwegian blizzard, a studio fire, and a bank that nearly foreclosed on the whole galaxy. It was directed by a USC professor who said no at lunch, performed in part by an Olympic fencer nobody was supposed to acknowledge, and shaped by an ad-lib the director fought to keep. The biggest twist in cinema history was hidden behind a fake line. The villain's voice was uncredited by the man who provided it, and the most iconic theme in the franchise premiered on public television 3 weeks before the film opened. If this video surprised you, drop your favorite fact in the comments. Like, subscribe, and share this with someone who loves this movie as much as you do. And as always, I am your father. We'll see you next time.